Hi, so it's widely known that under George Lucas, Star Wars was heavily influenced by German Nazis and what happened during World War II, with many plot lines featuring elements of what happened with Hitler, how he became the first Chancellor, and then how he took over as a dictator of Germany. And the number of images that which support it, for example, Darth Vader's helmet is heavily based on, is designed around the German helmet. And there's also the generals' uniforms are designed or heavily based on German military designs, and also stormtroopers are based on German stormtroopers. The 3 points have really hit me about the latest Star Wars films is that the writers would have really studied the history of Star Wars and identified what motivated, what inspired the storyline. And they would have looked to replicate that, because if you personally were given the role of writing new Star Wars stories, you would have looked at what inspired the original Star Wars. So, as it was heavily based on what happened in Nazi Germany, there's also rumours that some of it was based on Vietnam with the Ewoks. But in terms of the influence of the Germans, you would have studied that and looked to continue it, because that's like a baseline for you to work from. And there's 3 points that have really struck me. And number one is early on in World War II, Rudolf Hess escaped and crash landed. And now, early on in the new Star Wars trilogy, we've got a character, in this case Finn, who escapes and crash lands. And they were both really pivotal roles, because Rudolf Hess escaping really identified and he gave information as to what was really happening inside Germany. So that's number one. And now, some people may not think that the role of Germany or Nazi has continued into the new trilogy, but it has. For example, General Hux is heavily based on the German Nazis. This speech he made, where he's in front of the military units, all the stormtroopers, is very typical Nazi Germany imagery. So no one can really deny that the role of World War II in the imagery of the Nazis has continued into the new Star Wars trilogy. But what I'm really interested in finding out what else is expanded or moved into this new trilogy. Now, number two that really strikes me is the leadership of the First Order, where we've got Snoke as the ultimate leader. Then he's got 2 lieutenants underneath him. We've got Kylo Ren and General Hux. Now, these 2 characters really conflict with each other. They argue, they look to outdo one another, and they also almost causing real conflict and making the First Order weaker by leading to mistakes. Now, Kylo Ren is considered an ace pilot, and now Hermann Göring was an ace pilot. Now, General Hux was the military leader, and Heinrich Himmler was the military leader under the Nazis. So this structure is very similar, because you had Hitler at the top. Now, I'm not suggesting that Snoke is based on Hitler. It's more the structure where you have 2 lieutenants. Now, these 2 people, Hermann Göring and Heinrich Himmler, were very famously at odds with each other. They would argue, they would look to communicate with Hitler about how poor the other one was. And it's thought that their disagreements between each other led to a lot of mistakes within the Nazi party, and the German war machine made a lot of errors and mistakes, because these 2 leaders were fighting each other, didn't trust each other, wanted to constantly outdo one another. And very similar to the First Order, Kylo Ren and General Hux would argue almost against each other. So that's point number 2, is how these 2 structures are very similar. Now, number 3 is the ending towards The Last Jedi is something strikes me when I was watching it about the concept of Dunkirk. Now, the concept of Dunkirk is where the British and the Belgian and some of the French soldiers were escaping France. So they escaped the beaches of Dunkirk and they were pursued by the Germans across France. So the soldiers during World War II made it to the beaches, and they were rescued by a number of fisher trawlers and also military navy boats. So what happened was they were pursued by the Nazis. They made it to a beach, and then they were rescued. Now, in Last Jedi, they were pursued by the First Order. They made it to a beach location, and then they were rescued. in this case by the Millennium Falcon. So this is another one that really strikes me, where the storyline is something was a huge pivotal point during World War II. So if you were writing Star Wars, you know that Star Wars was heavily influenced by World War II, where many people within the original Star Wars trilogy have admitted that the storylines and the plot lines were heavily based on Nazis and what happened in Germany. If you were the role of Disney and you were writing the new Star Wars trilogy, you would look to continue that, because it's like a cheat, as it were. And again, it's almost impossible to deny, because here we've got the Third Reich and here we've got the First Order. So the whole concept, the whole imagery of what they're looking to do is very similar. So these are 3 points that really strike me as potentially being taken from history, and they've looked to copy what George Lucas did. George Lucas borrowed or was inspired by some of the stories in World War II, and he wasn't looking to glamorise them at all. I'm not suggesting that at all. But some of the events in history, and around the time, George Lucas made a number of interviews saying he's a huge fan of history, and there's also talk of like the Roman Empire was some of the plot lines were driven by what happened with the Roman Empire. So the concept of using history in the new trilogy, I think it's there. I think it can be found, and I wouldn't be surprised if, and it would be quite a sensible thing to do, because they know it happened in the original Star Wars under George Lucas, so why not continue it? So let me know what you think in the comments below, and thank you for watching.